Hi, everybody. I'm Cheryl Crisp for Movie Guides Backstage Pass, and this is Coffee and Conversation with Sadie and Christian Huff. Hey, guys.
Hey,
Hey,
thanks
how
for
you
having us
doing?
on.
Cheers. Thanks for joining us. Got your coffee? I'm so excited to talk to you guys. You're such an inspiration, and you're such an adorable couple. Sadie, I wanted to talk to you about you grew up in front of all of us. You've been in the public eye since you were 14 years old with your family's hit reality television show, Duck Dynasty, and on Dancing with the Stars. But I want to go back and what was Sadie Robertson like as a little girl? Have you always had a heart for Jesus?
Yes, was pretty similar to who I am now. I'm not gonna lie. So, right behind me, you can see the words "Live Original," and that was actually a nickname my dad gave me whenever I was around 5 years old. I wanted a nickname so bad because I thought all the cool people have nicknames. And my dad said to me, Sadie, you're just an original. That's just who you are. And I thought, Dad, that's not a good nickname. Original is too much of a mouthful. And no one's going to call me the original. But it has really stuck. And actually, there's a video of me at 5 years old. This is really crazy. But I was on a countertop, I was preaching to my parents, and I said in that video, even if I'm famous one day, I'm not going to think about myself, I'm giving it to God. And so it's cool because I think all of us, we can look back at our 5-year-old selves and see a lot of who we are in them already. And we have two daughters, and even our 2-year-old, I can see so much of who she's going to be in her little personality now. So it's fun to look back and see those things. It's true.
Christian, what were you like as a little boy? Have you always loved Jesus?
That is a good question. Well, I was not preaching on a coffee table when I was five. But yeah,
With
I
a
mean, when I
hairbrush microphone?
Yeah.
no, I was not. I was not. I was always outside with my brother playing sports. Was super into sports growing up. But yeah, growing up, loved being in church. I loved going to VBS growing up. So I would say when I was really young, I did have a heart for Jesus. Loved going to church. I've always believed in God, loved that. But then, throughout high school and early on to college, definitely had my years of rebellion. But
Okay.
prior to that, yeah, I would say growing up, I really did love God. I loved, VBS. I loved all the church summer camps that I did growing up. So definitely had a heart for God growing up. But yeah, things kind of took a
Yeah.
turn in high school and in college. But I'm back. I'm back on the right path that I was when I was a little boy.
What did they say? Our mess is part of our message, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sadie, you are a New York Times bestselling author, and you've written, I think, 6 books now. It's incredible. And you both are kicking off, you're launching your first book together, and Christian's first book that he's ever written. It's called How to Put Love First, a 90-day challenge to find meaningful connection with God, your people, and your community. Sadie, how is this book different than other relationship books?
Yeah. So this book is definitely different than I feel like probably most relationship books because it's not necessarily a relationship book in the way that you think of relationship books. It's
It's
not.
not romantic.
It's not romantic relationship. So many people wanted Christian and I to write a relationship book, and we were like, we are no experts in relationships. We feel very unqualified, I guess you should say, to write a relationship book when we're just about 4 years into marriage. We thought we'll write a relationship book one day, when we're 20 years down the road and have some experience under our belt. But then we started thinking, really and truly, although we don't have a lot of advice in that area, what we can lead people to is a relationship with God. And I believe if you put God first, which is essentially putting love first, because God is love, if you put God first, then love will flow into every relationship that you're in because you're in relationship with love himself. And so ultimately it's a relationship book with God. It's a relationship book with people around you and how your relationship with God influences all of those relationships in your life.
Christian, what does that mean or look like for you as a couple to put love first?
Yeah, that's so good. And because what's really cool about the book, it's like it says in the thing, it's a 90-day challenge. Like each entry we both do. There's a day one, day two, all the way to 90. And some are written from Sadie, some are written from me. That's us co-writing it together, I guess you could say. But there is a challenge, and I think putting love first. I think there's so much self-sacrificial that goes into it, and like Sadie said, putting God first. But throughout the book, it's really us talking about times where we have done that, and times where we have put, other people before ourselves, and where we put God before. Obviously he's the foundation, but then there's times where we put ourselves first, and we talk about that in the book of this is what it looks like when you put yourself first and when you don't put God first. And it's filled with our mishaps and messiness, and it's we hope it's relatable, because it is real life. I mean, I talk about road rage for people driving in front of me going slow, and it's like, there we have parts about our relationship with God and people in our community, and just how to actually live a life where you are full of patience, and you are full of all these qualities that the Bible talks about. And we hope that it's relatable to people, and that it makes people realize that we're human, we're not perfect. We hope to be relatable. We struggle with all the same things that people struggle with, and we just want to be open and honest about it, and hopefully that it's reciprocated that way.
It's good.
Yeah, that's really good. I want to ask both of you, but I'll start with Sadie. Since we're talking about love, Sadie, can you give us a quick tip for young people out there who are looking for a spouse, like some character traits that are important to look for?
Yeah, it's great. First of all, just for young people looking for a spouse, I would just say, go ahead and start living the lifestyle that one day you want to live. And I say it like this: I have a friend who, she desires to get married, but she's living a really crazy lifestyle right now. And she said to me one day, I just can't wait to get married to find consistency. And I told her friend, if you want consistency, you should start living consistently. That's not going to come when you get married one day. That starts now. And then when you get married, it will breathe into your marriage. And I think sometimes people think when they get married, then like everything will change and all their things will be answered and it'll all make sense. But no, you will go into marriage who you are. And so go ahead and start being the best version of you, so that you're even ready to be with your spouse one day and living like the marriage that you want to have. But yes, a couple of things to look for in a person. Consistency is a great one. Someone who doesn't bring confusion, but brings clarity into your life. And someone who loves God more than they love you. I think that's huge. Someone asked me the other day when I knew Christian was the one. And I joked that it was actually when I went to break up with him, but it's actually true.
And I had no idea she was going to do that.
No, I was breaking up with him. He wasn't getting the hint.
She didn't tell me till 10 months after that.
I know.
conversation.
So I was going to break up with him because I was like, I'm so busy and I feel so sad about that. Like I would feel so bad that I would like not be a good girlfriend for you to have, because I would not be able to visit you. I would not be able to be on the phone with you. I was removing myself from the situation because I was so sorry for how busy I was.
It was the ultimate, it's not me.
It was. And it's really,
it's not you, it's me.
I really meant that. And Christian said to me, he said, never apologize for what God's doing in your life. And I just love that. Like it shifted my mind. And then the things he said in that conversation were just so good, but he was really just leading me to God and being confident in my relationship with God. And so find a man who can lead like that and leads you to Jesus.
Absolutely. Christian, what about you? Character traits for a spouse?
That's great. Well, I think for me, it's something that I'm passionate about. Well, obviously, in finding a spouse, I think someone who's very genuine, someone who's authentic, someone who, like Sadie said, does love God more than people. But if for a guy listening, and I think we're growing up in a culture and just society where so many things are just filtered with social media, with all these different things. It's so easy to filter things and to make something look the way that we want it to look, right? And I just think that I think that can be dangerous. I think we can get in that mentality of, I'm just going to fake it and then fake it until I make it kind of thing. And Rich Wilkerson Jr., who's a pastor, he said, just speaking about relationships, he said, the bait that you catch them with is the bait that you'll keep them with. And I'd heard that quote right before me and Sadie started dating. And it's just this idea of, if you try to be somebody that you're not, then you're going to have to keep up that reputation for forever. And me and Sadie kind of joked that if you really want to get to know someone, you should know them for 6 months, because it's hard to fake something for at least 6 months.
Right.
But like first 3 months, people can fool you. You're like,
You can be sweet and sensitive.
And then all of a sudden, what happens, I've seen this in so many relationships, that person was obviously faking it, and the person would be like, oh no, they are so sweet, like the first 3 months they were great, like I'm just trying to get back to that. And it's like, hello, wake up call. That was not who they are. That was who they were showing you they were. This is more who they are. And so you do need to kind of be aware of those things, and don't go and fake it. Just be who you are from the start.
So I think character traits, I think just
Genuineness.
genuineness, and whatever you want in someone, I think you should be that person. Like if you want someone that's genuine, you have to be genuine. If you want somebody who loves God more than the other person, then you have to be someone that loves God more than people.
Sadie, your grandparents, speaking of relationships, have a brand new movie out right now. It's about your grandparents, Phil and Kay Robertson, and it's called The Blind. And I snuck to the theater last night and saw it. It is fantastic.
Awesome.
I really, really loved it. And it's about their true life story of hardship and hope, from a life and a marriage that was a wreck to redemption. Sadie, talk about how your grandparents' decision to run to God and not away from God is blessing many, many generations, from your parents, you, your daughters, and future generations.
Yeah, so if you've seen The Blind, you know the story. If you haven't seen The Blind, it's just an incredible story of redemption and what God can do in someone's life, and it's amazing. I mean, you watch that movie and you're like, even for me, I know this is real, but you're like, is that real? Did that really happen? And it did. There's actually so much more layers that they could have added to the movie that would have been even crazier for people to see, just Pebble Phil's life before God and after. But watching that movie, it's a very emotional movie. It's kind of tough to watch, especially if you're a family member, because you're watching your grandparents' hardest time of their entire life displayed on a big screen. But it was actually the good part that made me cry. It was the very end, whenever they were showing like who they are now, and it was like just the legacy that they left, and Duck Dynasty days, and then all of our family and their grandkids and their great grandkids, my kids. And it was just like, wow, thinking about the fact that if he never gave his life to Jesus, we would not be here. And then not only like our life, but everyone in the theater that day that was watching was like people that they had invited. It was like our small, screener. And there was like 200 people, and everyone in that room has the same feeling that I have of like, okay, if he did not give his life to Jesus, our life would not look the way that it does. And so it's just a really powerful lesson to learn that like your life being transformed by the power of the gospel is influencing generations to come. And Pebble Phil never was on Duck Dynasty, and our family was never known to the world, still the influence that he had would have touched every single one of our lives for the better, even if it was just those 200 people in the room. It did get to touch millions, and that's amazing. But for those listening, like, you might not have a reality TV show one day and touch millions and millions of people, but you influencing your family is actually like the biggest thing that you could do for the kingdom. And man, that multiplies, that goes generation to generation, that spreads throughout the world. So just don't underestimate your influence by your transformative, by the transformation that you have in Christ.
Christian, what is it like for you to be surrounded by all these cousins and aunts and uncles, and to raise your girls in that kind of atmosphere?
Yeah, it's so great. I mean, I came from a big family in Florida, and Sadie has a big family here in Louisiana. So it's awesome that we both have, that experience. Both sets of our grandparents are still alive. So it's awesome that we have two daughters who still have all four sets of their great grandparents. And yeah, it's really crazy because I'd never thought about just the trickle effect of what that decision made until really a few months ago, when we were when Willie was talking about the impact of that one decision of, it's great that my daughters do get to be surrounded by it, because if they didn't make the decision, then I wouldn't be here, and they wouldn't be here because Sadie wouldn't be here, because we don't know if Willie and Corey would have ever met. There's just so many things that by happenstance probably wouldn't have happened if he did not repent and turn his life around.
Christian and Sadie, you have two beautiful little girls, Honey and Haven. What would you say as parents, if you could pick three most important things that you could teach them, what would you say that would be?
Wow, that's a good question. I would say, off the top of my head, number one, who God is. I mean, if we get that right, if they know who God is, then I feel like we did our job. And number two, who they are. I think that that's really important to know who you are, especially in this world. And that goes a lot with the first one. If you know who God is, you'll know who you are. And then lastly, man, this is a on the spot question. I think about what I say over her every night, as I always say, I hope you always know how loved you are. And then we will say the Matt Trailer quote oftentimes, God made the day and the day was made for you, just reminding her that you have purpose and that you're loved. And so I think those things like, hey, know who God is, know who you are, and know that there won't be a day in your life that you're not loved by someone. You'll always be loved by God. You'll always be loved by us. There's nothing you can do that would make us not love you. And those are things that we're telling her now, and her and Haven, even though Haven might not understand yet. I think speaking that over them is so important, even before they comprehend it.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are both so young, but you seem so much older because you both are so wise. I'm really loving your podcast, and I'm learning so much, even at my age. Sadie, you're the host of the popular Whoa, That's Good podcast. And Christian, you're the host of the 4-8 Men podcast. It encourages men to train physically and spiritually. Christian, can you tell us how the two are related, and why is it important for men to be the spiritual head of their family?
Yes, that's great. Well, so it's called 4-8 Men, and it comes from the verse in 1 Timothy 4:8, where Paul says that physical training is of some value, but godliness is of value for all things. So really just this idea of, he's acknowledging the physical training. I mean, for me growing up, I love to work out. I love sports. Fitness is something for me that is an outlet for me just to go. It's a hobby of mine. I can go, and it's really a form of quiet time for me. We have less quiet mornings and less quiet evenings and just downtime throughout the day. So having some place that I can go do that's really helpful. But I think that sometimes we can just lose the parallel of, disciplines and of routines to an extent. So like for physical training, if I want to get in good shape, I'm going to work out probably a couple times a week. I'm not maybe just going to work out one day a week. And same spiritually, if I just go to church on Sunday, then I'm probably not going to be as faith-filled or as just obedient as I probably would be if I incorporated it into my everyday life. So really just this idea of we can be disciplined with, we have a workout plan, we have a workout routine, and we have a meal plan and whatever, but it's like, but how are you cultivating that spiritually? Like, are you reading your Bible? Are you worshiping? Are you praying? Like, are you doing these practical disciplines that you're doing in other areas of life, whether it's with work or whatever?
Christian and Sadie, what encouragement would you like to give to your generation who are so busy and distracted and bombarded with negativity about living a life with God versus living a life without God, and starting right now?
That's good. Well, I was actually at a college the other day, and I was preaching, and I've never had this happen before, but I just had to stop mid-message because I felt like that God just stopped me. I was just going off on this idea of I was just almost saying it like it was casual, that God is the God of the universe, and he loves you, and who he is peace and joy and love, and that's all these things. And I just stopped. I was like, look, here's the thing. I'm not preaching this to y'all because I feel like you have to get this because you have to be a Christian, because your parents want me to do this, or because someone hired me to come here and do this. I'm here tonight telling you these things because this radically transformed and saved my life. And I look at the stats of our world, and I see a generation that's highly anxious, super depressed, struggling. We have the suicide rates are so high. I mean, you look around and there's so much confusion on your identity and your purpose. And I go, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm saying these things. That's why I'm preaching this, because Jesus Christ says, I am the way, the truth, the life, and no one gets to the Father except through me, that has come to give you a path, that he's come to light the way, that he gives you life and life to the fullness, that he wants you to be attached to your heavenly Father who loves you, that can actually put the fruit in your life, like peace in an anxious world, and joy in an oppressed world, and love when you feel lonely. And I'm like, that's why we're preaching this message. And I think so sometimes people think, oh, I just have to go to church, it's what I'm supposed to do, I should do that. It's like, no, it's actually what you want. It's just you're looking in all the other places of the world to find the things that only God can give you in fullness. And so to our generation, I would just say, like, you're already looking for God. You're just looking in the wrong places. You're just looking in the temporary satisfaction instead of the source himself. And so, yeah, I would just say the good news is the good news for a reason, because it's the best news you've ever heard.
It's the great news.
Mm-hmm.
Christian, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there just really has to be this shift of, we always talk about this idea of we have our spiritual lives and we have our personal lives. And I think that you have to just make it your whole life. You have to, it has to become all of who you are. And even with the fitness thing, I just love in the Gospels when Jesus shows up to Peter and Peter's fishing and he's not catching any fish. Then Jesus, touches the water, does whatever he does. Then Peter catches all this fish. And then Jesus says, I'll make you a fisher of men. And he was speaking to Jesus Jesus was speaking to Peter in language that he would understand. He's a fisherman. So he said, I'll make you a fisherman. You will go catch men. And I think that, it was a radical moment because Peter was, that was his job. That was his hobby. And then here Jesus comes and says, I'm going to give you the ultimate mission. And all of Peter's life became consumed with helping people and with the gospel and the good news. And I think that sometimes we can just, we can kind of separate our personal life and our spiritual life. So at church, I'm going to act this way, but when I'm in the classroom or when I'm at the party or when I'm, doing whatever, then I'm going to keep those two separate. And I think that we have to get to a point where it consumes all of you. There is such a conviction and there is such just a spirit of just wanting to be in relationship with God that it's all consuming. It's your whole life.
Sadie, on your Whoa, That's Good podcast, you always ask an awesome question. And in closing to both of you, your question you always ask, I love it, is what is the best advice you've ever been given? Can you both tell me what your best advice has been?
I've always said my best advice I've ever been given is from my great grandma, and that is true. But I'm going to give you a piece of advice that I've recently heard that I thought was so good. I was reading a book, and Christian's laughing. He's going to laugh because I've literally been on this quote because I was just like, this is such good advice. But I'm reading this book called You Are What You Love, and the author said this. He said, if you want people to build a boat, don't tell them to go get wood, teach them to desire the sea. And I just love that so much because I think that it's in the same way with our relationship with God, where people think like, if I have to do this, they don't want to do it. It's like, oh, I have to go to church. I got to go check the box off. Okay. If I got to be in a relationship with God, then I got to read my Bible for 10 minutes in the morning or whatever. And it's like, no, forget that. Like, let me tell you like who this God is. I want to teach you to desire to be in relationship with God because he's that good. Because why would you not want to know the God of the universe who loves you and is your father? And so I just think it's just reshaping your mindset as a leader to not teach people in such a way that's like, you have to do this or you should do this, but like, let me tell you why. Let me tell you what we're longing for here. So I want to lead like that. I want to lead like that with my family. I want to lead like that in my life. And I just thought that was really, really good advice.
No, I love that advice. And I will never get tired of hearing you say
Thank you. Thank you.
I really need to update mine because I really have gotten so much good advice, but just the one that comes to my head, and it's my Instagram bio, but it's by Rich Wilkerson Jr., who I said earlier, but he said that if it breaks God's heart, why do you think it will fulfill yours? And I just love that idea of there's so many things in our world that we think can fulfill us. There's so many little g gods and so many idols that we think can bring us satisfaction, but there's only one being and there's only one source that we can ultimately find our satisfaction in. And I think for a while I tried to just find that in other places until I really got to the breaking point of where, there's no sustenance in that. There's no sustaining satisfaction in that. And when I got to that point of only God can really fulfill all these things that I'm craving, then that's what I want to follow. And yeah, so just if it breaks his heart, why do I think it will fulfill mine? So I think that's
Great.
Love that quote.
That's awesome. Sadie and Christian, thank you so much for joining us. You guys are awesome. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
We
much.
appreciate it.
Thank you. And to watch more videos like this, go to movieguide.org.